I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My wife, Sarah, and I just celebrated our 10th anniversary last week. It was supposed to be special, a quiet dinner, a few laughs, maybe even some reminiscing about the good old days. Instead, I spent that night trying to piece together what I'd never wanted to believe was happening behind my back. It started with little things. Sarah's phone lit up more often than usual, but she'd always be quick to dismiss it. Work thing, she'd say, or just a friend from college. I let it slide, convinced it was nothing, but then I noticed she was unusually tense when I'd pick up her phone. Her fingers would tremble slightly, and she'd quickly hide the screen or lock it. One night, I caught her glancing at her phone in a way that made my stomach tighten. Just a quick flick of her eyes, but enough for me to realize she was hiding something. The real shocker came 2 nights ago. I'd been out late at work, and she was already in bed when I got home, but her phone was lying face down on the nightstand just within reach. I couldn't help myself, I reached for it. Her notifications were flooded with texts. I saw a few names I didn't recognize, but one stood out, Jake, with a string of messages that made my jaw tighten. The texts were flirtatious, coded in inside jokes I never heard of, and worse, there was a clear pattern. It wasn't just random. Jake had been messaging her for months. I scrolled through, pretending I was doing something else, but my eyes locked on words that made my blood run cold. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one said. "Miss you already." And the last one, "Tonight, going to be perfect." My fingers clenched into fists and my stomach dropped. I wanted to scream, but I stayed quiet. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she lied? It wasn't just a one-time slip-up. This was a slow, deliberate betrayal. And Jake, my best friend, was involved. That's what made it worse. I felt the walls close in, a simmering mix of shock, rage, and a deep sense of loss. I sat there on the edge of the bed, clutching her phone, trying to process what I'd just seen. How could she do this? How could Jake, my closest friend, betray me like this? I didn't want to wake her, not yet. I just stared at the glowing screen, feeling every second tighten the knot in my gut. I knew I couldn't just pretend everything was fine anymore. This wasn't just some fling. It was full-on deception, and it's unraveling my life. I felt the heat of betrayal burn through my chest, and I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. The first step was obvious. I had to confront her. But I also knew I couldn't go in blind. I needed a plan. I needed proof, something airtight, because I wasn't about to get played or humiliated further. I sat there for a long, cold moment, the air thick with silence, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. I didn't want to believe it, but my instincts told me I was right. She'd been lying for months. And Jake? He'd been lying to my face all along. The trust was shattered, and all that was left was the urge to make things right. Or at least make sure they paid for what they'd done. Do you want me to keep going? The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was a tight knot. I kept looking at her side of the bed, expecting her to wake up and deny everything, but she stayed silent. I knew I couldn't just keep pretending I hadn't seen what I saw. I had to face her, no matter how much it hurt. I made coffee, the smell vaguely comforting but mostly pointless. I kept staring at her phone, debating whether I should confront her now or wait until I had more evidence. But I knew, deep down, I wouldn't get any clearer answers if I waited. I needed to have the conversation. She finally stirred around 9 a.m., rubbing her eyes and sitting up. Her hair was a mess and she looked tired, but there was a flicker of something I could only describe as guilt. She looked at me, and I saw her lips tremble. I decided to cut straight to the point. "Sarah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we need to talk about those texts." She froze. Her eyes darted away for a second, then back to mine. "What are you talking about?" she asked, voice shaky. "Don't lie," I thought. "Just be honest." "I saw your messages with Jake," I said, voice low but firm. "The ones from the night of our anniversary. For months you've been messaging each other behind my back." Her face paled. She looked like she'd been punched. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered. "Not what it looks like." I snapped. "Really? Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. Flirty texts, plans to meet up. Damn, Sarah, how long has this been going on?" She swallowed hard and looked down. It's complicated." "Complicated," I repeated, my voice rising. "No, Sarah, it's betrayal. You cheated on me and Jake, my best friend, was in the middle of it. How could you do this?" She finally looked up, tears pooling in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you. I was lonely and Jake was there." "It was stupid. It meant nothing." "Nothing," I scoffed. "That's the best you can do. For months you lied, you hid your phone, and you call that nothing." She started crying then, soft, trembling tears that made my stomach churn. I felt the anger boiling, but also a sick kind of sadness. I'd trusted her. We built so much together. How did it come to this? I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore, not without doing something about it. I needed a plan, something calculated, something that would hit home. I decided I'd gather all the proof I could find, confront Jake directly, and show her I was serious about ending this mess once and for all. But first, I needed to get away for a bit. Breathe, think, and formulate my next move. I told her I was going out for a walk, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The cool air hit me like a slap, sharp, invigorating. I needed clarity. I had to get revenge, but I also had to be smart about it. My mind kept circling back to Jake. How long had he been doing this? How deep did his betrayal go? Could I trust anyone anymore? I knew that revealing everything, making him feel the pain of betrayal was necessary, and I knew I had to do it without losing control. I decided that for now I'd log everything. Save all the messages, call records, anything that could serve as undeniable proof. I'd also make a list of every way I could hurt him back, but I'd keep it simple. No violence, no shouting. Just enough to make him regret crossing me. The anger was building in my chest. My skin felt tight, like I was holding in a storm. I kept walking, feeling the sun slowly warm my face. I was ready to make my move. Sarah's tears and apologies wouldn't change what she'd done, but I could sure as hell make sure she understood the magnitude of her betrayal. I looked around, feeling the weight of the betrayal settle in, and I knew this wasn't going to be over quickly. But I was determined I'd end this, one way or another. And I'd make sure Jake paid for turning my life into this mess. Would you like me to continue? That afternoon, I made a plan. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my laptop, trying to piece together exactly how I was going to do this. First, I downloaded every message, every call record, everything I could find on Sarah's phone. I knew I had to be meticulous. I didn't want her to deny anything or claim I was making things up. I wanted concrete proof. While I was at it, I also started digging into Jake's social media profiles. If I could find anything suspicious, photos, comments, even old messages, it would give me more leverage. I was already feeling the adrenaline spike. The plan was simple but effective. Confront Jake directly, show him I knew everything, and let him feel the cold burn of betrayal he dealt me. But before that, I needed to get the evidence in hand. I spent the next hour extracting screenshots, saving texts into secure folders, and printing out the most incriminating parts. Every message, every sneaky exchange was documented. I wanted him to understand I wasn't just bluffing or overreacting. I was serious. When the evening came, I called him. No warning, just dialed his number and let it ring. He picked up after a few rings, sounding a little surprised. "Hey man, what's up?" "No small talk," I said, voice cold. "I know what you've been doing with Sarah and I have proof, so I'd advise you to meet me tonight face to face and we can talk about it." There was a pause, then he sighed, trying to sound nonchalant. "Dude, you're blowing things out of proportion, just calm down. Don't bullshit me, Jake. I have texts, call logs, everything. You're not getting away with this. Meet me at the corner bar in an hour alone." He hesitated, then finally agreed. "Fine, I'll see you there." I hung up, feeling a mix of satisfaction and dread. I knew what I was walking into, but I had no choice. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay. I needed closure, and I needed him to know I was serious. The bar was noisy, crowded with the usual weekend crowd. I saw Jake sitting in a corner, his face tense, sipping his beer like it was some kind of shield. I approached, and he looked up, trying to act casual. "Hey," he said. "What's this about?" I didn't waste time. I pulled out my phone, and with deliberate finality, I started showing him the screenshots I'd saved. My voice was steady, but I felt the anger lacing every word. "See these, your texts, your plans. You've been lying to my face for months. How long has this been going on, Jake? How deep did it go?" He looked pale, eyes darting away. "Look, man, no, you look," I snapped. You betrayed me, your friend, and my wife all at once. Do you get how sick that is? I trusted you. He finally looked up, voice strained. I was drunk, man. I didn't mean for it to get so out of hand. Bullshit, I said sharply. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now I want you to understand the consequences. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded note. Here, what I'm going to do, I'm leaving Sarah, and I want her out of my life. But you're not getting away with this so easily. You're going to regret ever crossing me. His face was a mixture of guilt and defiance. What do you want from me? I want you to stay away from me, permanently, and I want you to remember that I know everything. If I see you near her again, or if I find out you've lied to me, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did, including a few people who can make your life difficult. He nodded slowly, realizing I meant every word. All right, fair enough, I get it. I didn't want to say more. I just turned and walked away, feeling the heat of betrayal finally boiling over into something else, a cold, calculating desire to make this hurt. I'd done everything I could to catch him, to make him feel the same pain I did. And I knew this wasn't over yet. Back at home, Sarah was waiting. She looked desperate, almost pleading. When I told her I had confronted Jake, her eyes widened in shock. What are you going to do? I looked her straight in the eye, voice low and measured. You're leaving. Tonight, I want you out of my house, and I want no contact with Jake ever again. Her face crumpled. Please don't do this. Can't we just talk? No, I said, voice hard. This is over. You betrayed me, and I'm done forgiving. Time to face the consequences. That night I packed her bags and handed her the keys. She cried, begged, but I didn't budge. I had just taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. No matter how much it hurt, I knew I'd be better off without her. Now, I sit here writing this, trying to piece together what's next. The betrayal still stings, but I feel a strange sense of clarity. The trust is broken, but I refuse to let her destroy what's left of me. I'll rebuild, stronger, angry, but determined. I learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to take matters into your own hands and make damn sure the other person regrets ever crossing you. Would you like me to continue? The days after I kicked Sarah out felt like walking through a fog. I was angry, yes, but there was also this odd sense of relief mixed with pure exhaustion. I had done what I needed to do. I confronted, I proved, and I took decisive action. Still, I knew I couldn't just move on without facing the fallout. The betrayal was a wound that wouldn't close overnight. I kept the evidence in a secure folder on my laptop, accessible but hidden. I wasn't planning to go public just yet, but I wanted to be ready in case Jake or Sarah decided to spin their stories. Every time I thought about Sarah, my stomach twisted. The image of her crying, begging me to reconsider, was burned into my mind. But I told myself this pain was necessary. I had to cut her out to heal. The next step was confronting Jake again, this time more directly. I texted him, telling him I needed to talk. No apology, no warning, just a simple message. Meet me at the same bar. We need to settle this once and for all. I wanted him to see I was serious. I didn't want him thinking he could get away with this. I knew he'd be nervous, maybe even scared, but I also knew I had to make him understand this wasn't just a one-time mistake. When he showed up, the bar was nearly empty. I saw him hesitating outside, then take a deep breath and walk in. He looked different, more cautious, maybe even guilty. As soon as I saw him, I didn't waste any time. You've been lying, I said, voice cold. And I've got proof about everything, about the texts, the calls, the whole affair. You crossed a line, Jake. You've been messing with my wife and my life behind my back for months, and I'm done pretending I didn't see it. He looked away, shifting uncomfortably. Look, man, I didn't mean for it to get this messy. It was a mistake, okay? Really? I shot back. A mistake? You're my closest friend. How do you call this a mistake? You betrayed me, and I want to know why. He hesitated, then finally said, I was lonely. I guess I just got caught up in it. I didn't think it would go this far. I shook my head, feeling the anger boil again. You didn't think? You've been texting her for months. That's not just getting caught up. That's deliberate. You lied to my face, Jake, and I'm not just angry, I'm done. He looked like he was about to say something, but I cut him off. You're not going to see her anymore, ever. And if I find out you even try to contact her or me again, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did, including consequences you won't like. His jaw tightened. Look, I'm sorry, all right. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this. Can we just forget about it? "No," I said firmly. "You can't just apologize and walk away. You're going to regret this, Jake. Trust me, I've got enough proof that I could ruin you if I wanted. But I won't. Instead, I'm giving you a choice. Stay away from me, Sarah, and try to start over, or keep pushing and face the fallout." He looked defeated, eyes fixed on the floor. "Fine, I get it. I'll stay away." I nodded, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and exhaustion. I had done what I needed to do, set boundaries, and make sure this never happens again. I didn't want revenge just for revenge's sake. I wanted to make it clear that crossing me would have serious consequences. As I turned to leave, I realized how much this whole thing had changed me. I'd gone from trusting everything to questioning everything. But I also knew one thing: I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I'd rebuild my life one step at a time and learn to trust myself again. When I got home, I saw Sarah's things gone from the house. The silence felt deafening. I poured a glass of whiskey, sat on the porch, and stared at the empty space where she used to be. The betrayal still stung, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had taken control. That was the only way forward. I told myself I'd be okay. This was just a chapter, one I had to close to start healing. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but this was a wake-up call I couldn't ignore. I'd learned that sometimes sitting back and letting things happen only makes it worse. No, this time I fought back, and I would keep fighting until I finally felt like I was in charge of my life again. Would you like me to continue? The weeks that followed felt surreal. I threw myself into work and tried to drown out the noise in my mind, but the ache of betrayal lingered. I'd done everything I could to confront Jake, cut him out, and get some semblance of control back. Still, I could shake the feeling that I needed to do something more. I wasn't just angry, I was determined to make this hurt in a way that mattered. One night, I stayed up late, thinking about how I could take my revenge further without going off the rails. I knew Jake's weak spots: his reputation, his pride, and his social circle. I also knew Sarah had told some mutual friends about the breakup, but I hadn't told anyone the full truth. I decided that I'd keep this secret for now, but I'd use it as leverage if I needed to. I wanted him to understand the pain he'd caused. Not just a slap on the wrist, but something that would resonate, something that would make him think twice about crossing someone like me again. So I crafted a plan, subtle, precise, and calculated. I started by going through his social media, looking for signs of vulnerability or weakness. I found an old picture of him and some friends, but I also noticed a recent comment he made about how everyone's got a price. That stuck with me. It was a challenge and a warning all at once. I knew I could use that. I waited a few days, then reached out to a few of his friends, under the guise of catching up but also testing the waters. I wanted to gauge who was truly loyal to Jake, or if there were cracks in his armor. Most of them still spoke highly of him, but I picked up on some whispers, the kind that hinted Jake had been slipping, losing his grip on his reputation. One day, I got a text from an anonymous number. It was a screenshot of a private conversation between Jake and someone else, discussing how he'd really screwed up with me and how he was worried about the fallout. The message read, "If you really want to hurt him, keep pushing. The truth's gonna come out and it won't be pretty." That was my cue. I decided it was time for the final move. I'd send an anonymous message to Sarah, just to remind her I knew everything she'd done and to make her realize I wasn't going to let this slide. I crafted a simple but pointed message. "You might think you're free, but I'm watching. Your secrets aren't safe. Be careful what you wish for." I hit send, leaning back in my chair, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. It was like planting a seed of doubt in her mind. She'd always believed she could hide behind her tears, her apologies, but I'd made sure she knew I'd never be gone. But the biggest part of my plan was still ahead. I wanted Jake to feel the full weight of what he'd done. So I decided to leave subtle hints that I was aware of everything. I started making small changes, leaving a few clues in places he'd notice. An unsigned note on his car windshield, a message left on his work email, a small gift I knew he'd find. Nothing obvious, but enough to make him realize I was in control. One evening, I found him at a local bar again, this time with some friends. I watched from a distance. His face looked different, more tense, less confident. I saw him glance around nervously as if he was worried about being watched. That's when I knew my plan was working. Later that night, he approached me, visibly uncomfortable. "Look, I know you're doing this," he said, voice low. "Just get it over with." "What do you want?" I looked him in the eyes, feeling the power shift. "What I want," I said, "is for you to understand what it feels like to be betrayed. You crossed a line, Jake, and I'm going to make sure you never forget it. You're going to regret ever messing with me." He swallowed hard, realizing I wasn't bluffing. "Fine," he muttered. "I get it. No more contact. I'll stay away." I nodded, feeling the weight of it all. I'd taken back control, and I was making sure he knew it. I wasn't going to burn him down yet, but I wanted him to live with the fear that I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. As I walked away from that bar, I felt a strange mix of relief and cold satisfaction. The betrayal had cut deep, but I had finally turned the tables. I knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my sense of self. I had told myself that I'd come out of this stronger, even if it hurt now. And I knew that no matter what, this wasn't the end. I'd learned that sometimes the best way to heal is to take control and make the other person realize they can't just walk all over you. It's not about destruction. It's about making sure they understand that crossing boundaries has consequences. Would you like me to finish with the final part? The weeks that followed felt like the calm after a storm, but underneath, I knew the real work was just beginning. I'd made my move, set my boundaries, and made Jake and Sarah realize that I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that action alone wasn't enough. I needed a concrete step, something that would finally close this chapter and give me a sense of closure. One day, I went to the lawyer's office. I sat there with the paperwork in front of me, my hands slightly trembling but my mind clear. I handed over the divorce papers, explained my decision to end it all and sever every tie that connected me to her. I wanted to make sure this betrayal didn't just fade away or get buried deep. This was final. I looked her in the eye for the last time as I handed her the keys to the house. "You're out of my life," I said quietly but firmly. "I don't want to see you again, and I certainly don't want anything from you. Remember that, this is the end." She cried, begged, and tried to say she'd change, but I just shook my head. I'd heard enough lies. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me anymore. I knew her tears were just a performance, an attempt to get back in my good graces. It was over. I had made my decision, and I was going to see it through. The final steps were perhaps the hardest. I changed my phone number, blocked her on every social media platform, and warned my friends to stay neutral. I wanted no more contact, no messages, no calls, no visits. I knew that if I kept holding on, I'd just keep reliving the pain. I needed to cut it all out for good. As I sat alone that night, I reflected on everything. The betrayal, the pain, the anger, the revenge. But above all, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. I had taken control of my life when I thought I was powerless. I'd faced betrayal head-on and come out the other side stronger. I realized that sometimes, the only way to truly heal from betrayal is to make a decisive break, to cut out the poison, to reclaim your peace, and to understand that no matter how deep the pain, you can choose to walk away and rewrite your story. I learned that revenge isn't about destruction. It's about standing tall, setting boundaries, and making sure the other person understands they cannot cross you without consequences. Looking back, I see how far I've come. I'm not perfect and I still feel the sting sometimes, but I also feel a renewed sense of self. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define your future. You get to decide what your story is, whether it's one of pain or one of resilience. The most important lesson I learned: never let anyone make you feel small. When someone betrays you, you have a choice: fold or stand tall. I chose to stand tall, and that made all the difference. Because in the end, nobody has the power to break you unless you let them. And I refuse to let anyone take more than they've already stolen from me. That's how I reclaimed my life. That's how I found my peace. And if there's one thing I want you to take away, it's this: betrayal hurts, but you're stronger than it. Always remember that.